Thank you and good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Our topic relates to something that's gonna occur once a year in this month. And Adar, we recite the Megillah, and the Megillah tell us the story of the very strong anti-Semitism point in the history when Haman wants to kill the Jews, and we celebrate it all over the world since then that Hashem saved us from Haman. A month after Purim, we're going to sit in the Seder night and recite the Haggadah. In the Haggadah, we're going to say, Vehi she'amda la'avriseinu velanu, shelo echad bilvad amad aleinu lechalotenu. Not only one who wants to kill us during the history, ela shebechol dor vador, every generation you find this anti-Semite who took on himself the mission to wipe out the Jews from under the sky. This evening, in the very short time that we have, we'll try to see something very interesting that will show the powerful of the Torah, of the Tanakh. And it will not explain, this is a topic by itself, what anti-Semitism is all about and what the essence of it, but it will take us to a journey to understand where it started. I could declare in the beginning that anti-Semitism as a phenomena is old as the Jewish history. It started from the beginning, And there are reasons for this. It's not the time now to go into the reason, but it's very interesting to follow it. The Jewish nation started with Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was the first one who spread out the idea of monotheism in the world. Followed him Yitzchak and then Yaakov. And after Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, we moving to a new stage, which is the tribes, the Shvatim. I want to go in the Torah to a place when the Torah describes the pregnancy and the delivery of our third forefather, Yaakov. The psukim, the verses should be very well known, but what's important is to follow my emphasizes about the psukim. Okay? So let's go to Sefer Bereshit, Parashat Toldot. Over there is an interesting description about the pregnancy of Rivka and the delivery, and everything started over there. Let's see. I will read the original. If you want the translation over here, I'll try to translate it, but the original, the psukim in the Torah. ואלה תולדות יצחק בן אברהם, אברהם הוליד את יצחק. ויהי יצחק בן 40 שנה בקחתו את רבקה בת בתואל הארמי מפדן ארם, אחות לבן הארמי לא לאישה. ויעתר יצחק להשם לנוכח אשתו, כי עקרה היא, ויעתר לו השם, ותהר רבקה אשתו. In general, to summarize it, Abraham was married to Rivka. Rivka was not able to bring children to the world. Yitzchak prayed, davened for her, and God make his wishes true, and she became pregnant. Okay? She became pregnant. The next verses, during the pregnancy, something unusual happened. ויתרוצצו הבנים בקרבה, ותאמר אם כן למה זה אנוכי. She felt she never in her life was pregnant, but she felt that what's going on in this pregnancy is completely unusual. She felt that there is a conflict over there between two fetus that fighting with each other. And she knew that it's not a biological problem. She wanted to understand the meaning of it. She went to, the Medrash says, to the best Medrash of Shem ve'Ever to ask what's going on. And here comes the major important information. Be aware of this verse. Vayomer Hashem la. Hashem told her, God told her, when she was pregnant, he told her the following, שני גויים בבטנך, ושני לאומים ממאייך ייפרדו. ולאום מלאום יאמץ, ורב יעבוד צעיר. Let's understand what's written over here and analyze it. God told her, your feelings are true feelings. What you feeling now is unusual. You have two fetus that will deliver, will be two brothers. There is a conflict between them now, but you have to know that those two brothers will be fathers of two nations. And what you feeling right now is just the beginning. During the history, the nations that will come from those two kids will be in constant conflict. Okay? שני גויים בבטנך, two nations in your stomach, ושני לאומים ממאייך ייפרדו, two nations, ולאום מלאום יאמץ. The conflict will be between those two nations. And another very interesting piece of information, ורב יעבוד צעיר. And the oldest will be under the youngest, will serve the youngest. That's what God told Rivka, and Rivka kept it for herself. We will see later on, she didn't even told her husband, Yitzchak, what's going on. Okay, so the pregnancy got to the finish term, and here's the delivery. And the delivery also was something unusual occurred during the delivery. When she delivered them, ויצא הראשון אדמוני כולו כעדרת שיער ויקראו שמו עשיו. The first one, be aware of the description. The first one was a red head, not just a red head, a red hair, and he was covered with hair from toe to head. Very unusual for a baby. Could you imagine this? Could you picture this? A baby that looked like a monkey with a lot of hair, red hair. The Torah emphasized this, okay? Therefore, they called his name Esav. What's the connection? For those of you who know Hebrew a little bit, Esav are the words that, the letters that connected to the word asui, made. He's done. He's a baby, but he looked like a grown-up man. Therefore, his name is Esav. Okay? Now the Torah described the following. Right? Vayikra shmo Esav. Then, right after him, came out his brother. His brother, when he came out after him, he was holding his heel, trying to pull him back in order for him to go first. But he didn't succeed with this, and therefore, his name is Yaakov, because heel in Hebrew is akev. Akev. So he is holding him in the heel. The name Yaakov is actually telling us that he lost in this particular battle. Let me just say now that the entire thing is a fight over the leadership, as was our title of this lecture. It was even in the womb. They try to, each one of them tried to be above the other, more than the other. Of course, the major next junction is the delivery point, because the one who come out first, he is the firstborn, he is the leader. So about this was a fight, and this fight, this round, Esav won. He went out first, okay? Now the Torah described that Yitzchak was 60 years old when they were delivered. ויגדלו הנערים, and they grew up. ויהי עשיו איש יודע ציד איש שדה ויעקב איש תם יושב אוהלים. The Torah described here that when they grew up, even though they were brothers, their character were completely different than each other. One of them was very practical guy, hunter, connected to the field, ish sadeh, as a field man, and the other one was more intellectual, sitting in the ohel, meaning the Beis Medrash, and learning, and were more, intellectual side. Now, the Torah says, in the deeper level, in the Medrash, the Torah says that there is a connection between how the Torah described the two kind of character of Yaakov and Esau to the first pasuk in the Torah, the first verse in the Torah. What is the first verse in the Torah? Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. What's the connection? Shamayim is the spiritual dimension of the universe. Aretz is the physical dimension of the universe. There is a constant conflict between material and spiritual. Who is the leader? Is the main thing the spirituality and all the physical thing are just the mean for it, or vice versa? And this is actually the fight in philosophy, and this is actually, if you want, the fight that we have inside ourselves, because we are a combination of spiritual and physical, and the question is, what is the major, the physical or the spiritual? In the deepest level, in the Medrash and the Kabbalah, it's mentioned that Yaakov and Esau and the conflict that they have, it's not just a conflict between two babies, two kids, two people, two nations. It's a conflict between two ideas. What is the major, the spiritual or the physical? Of course, Esau holds that the physical is the major thing. Everything else, including spirituality, exists only to serve it. And Yaakov just thought the other way. It was a conflict, and we see that in the beginning, Esau is the winner. But everything changed when the following story occurred later on. Esau was a hunter. One day, the Torah described, he came out from the field, tired and hungry, and he found his brother Yaakov in the kitchen preparing a dinner for himself, which include nezid adashim. How do you say that? A lentil, I think? Lentil soup, red. A red lentil soup. It's very important that it's red. We'll see why later. So Esau came to him and said, listen, here's your brother. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I know you prepared it for yourself, but I'm hungry. Please feed me. He didn't even ask him to share his portion with him. Just give me everything. And you know what? I'll open my mouth, just fill it in, right? Pour it in. Vayomer al itenina, just pour it into my mouth. Al itenina min ha'adom hazeh. From the red stuff. Now we have to know, Esau was described, when he was born, he was hairy, and he was red hair, right? And here he's asking for red stuff. The Torah says, "Hal itanina min ha'adom hazeh ki ayef anochi al ken kara shmo Edom." Therefore, his name was Edom. And here, a very interesting point, 2 points. One, remember that Hashem says in prophecy to Rivka, when she was still pregnant, that two nations going to come out from those two kids. One nation, we know exactly who is this. We, the Jews, the children of Yaakov. But there is apparently no nation called Esau. And you know what? Even us, we are not called Yaakov. We called Israel, right? But who is the nation that come from Esau? And it's important for us to understand this. Who are they? Because it was promised that we're going to have a constant conflict with them during the history, right? So this is the hint for it. And the Torah mentioned that later on, that Esau, hu avi Edom, he is the father of the Edomites. And we know that there was a nation called Edom in the history, okay? This is one point. The other point about the red, about the Adom, the Tseva Adom, the color red, in Kabbalah, there are description or information who told us in the Kabbalah that there are meaning for colors. Red color is very strong color, very bright, strong. You know, it represents the material in the very vulgar way of material. It's represented by red. The opposite of red is white. When white represents purity, spiritual purity. So you see, even in this, that Esau was red, it's connected to everything that he represents. Okay. By the way, red is also, as everybody knows, the color of blood. Okay? Later on we'll see. Fine. So Esau is hungry. He asked Yaakov to feed him from this red stuff. Yaakov found the opportunity, and probably from here we inherit the sense for business. Okay, you're so hungry, you want my portion? No problem. Let's make a deal. I'll sell it for you. I'll sell it to you. I don't want from you anything, no money. Just give me the right of the firstborn. That's it. Remember, it was a fight between us, who is the firstborn, and you jumped out. Now I want to fix it. I really want it. If you want this food, I'll give it to you. Give me instead your firstborn rights. Esau said, fine, I'm hungry enough to do it. ויאמר יעקב מכרה כיום את בכורתך לי. ויאמר עשיו הנה אנוכי הולך למות ולמה זה לי בכורה. Okay, I have no time now to go to really the details of it because everything is so interesting. When Yaakov offered him to sell him the firstborn rights, he didn't say yes or no. He says something vague. I'm going to die. I'm in the field every day. Who knows if I'll come back home? Who needs firstborn rights? Right? So it's not a clear yes. Because Yaakov knew very well his brother, he didn't took any chances, and he told them, listen, I want a clear answer. ויאמר יעקב הישבעה לי כיום. Could you swear on this, that you really agree? וישבע לו, and he swore, וימכור את בכורתו ליעקב. And then the deal was done. ויעקב נתן לעשיו לחם ונזית עדשים, ויאכל וישת, ויקום וילך, ויבז עשיו את הבכורה. So he gave him the food that he wanted, and it was a deal. He sold it. He swore that he agreed, and more than that, he despised it at the end, right? ויבז עשיו את הבכורה. He, in order to make himself feel better, he said, I made a good deal. I got a real thing, food, and I sold, something abstract. That's what he said. Later on, he's gonna regret this, but it will be too late. But at this point, we find very interesting situation. It was a conflict even when they were in the pregnancy time. Esau won. Biologically, he is the firstborn. But now it changed because he sold it. Okay? Now, the Torah described that much later on, when they were old already, Yitzchak, their father, felt that he's old, he's going to pass away any day, so he wanted to give his will. According to his knowledge, his firstborn is Esau. So he called him and he said, listen, you're a good hunter. I want to bless you and give you my will. In order to do it in the right way, go get for me good food, hunt for me, you prepare the food, and I will enjoy it, and I'll give you the blessing. When that happened, Rivka, the mother of Yaakov and Esau, was hearing that. Esau went out to the field to hunt. She come to the room of her little brother, her little son, Yaakov, and told him the entire story. Listen, Yitzchak going to give his will now. You want to give it to Esau. Actually, you have to get it. So let's do a trick. He is old. He could not see anymore. You go get me 2 goats. I will make the food that your father loved. You will go in and dress up like Esau and make him believe that you're Esau. And tell him that, and he will give you the blessing. Now, there are many questions you have to ask over here. It seems not a nice trick. And the question is, why to do it like this? If Rivka felt that Yaakov has to deserve the blessing, she could talk with her husband and tell him the story. She didn't do that. And she offered it to Yaakov. You have to understand, the initiation was not his. It was his mother. When she offered it to him, the Torah says that he have no moral issue with this. He have a practical issue. He said, okay, I have no problem to do it. And the question is why? He didn't feel that it's not right morally. But he didn't feel that, and his mother didn't feel that. But he asked his mother, you know what? You're right, my father could not see, but he could feel me. And my twin brother is hairy and I'm not. So we're going to discover it. She told him, her mother told him, I thought about this also. Leave it for me. It will be okay. Okay? Good kid. He went out. He brought the goat. She made the food. She took out the skin of the goat and put the skin, which is hairy, on his smooth chest and smooth arms. Right? Just in case. When he came in to Yitzchak, he told him, okay, the food is ready. Yitzchak asked him, who are you? He said, Esav, your oldest son. Because Esav was hairy, it means that he has a very deep voice, right? Yaakov has a soprano voice. So when he asked him, who are you? Yitzchak asked him, who are you? He said, Esav. And it was not too deep enough. So Yitzchak could not hear, but he could hear. He could not see, but he could hear, right? So he felt that something wrong. So he told him, you know what? Come here, I want to feel you. And the Torah says that he filled him, and he didn't recognize him because his hands or his arms were hairy. So the trick of Rivka was successful. By the way, the first person who ever dressed up is Yaakov. That's why we're dressing up in Purim. What's the connection? We'll see later. But he was the first dressed up in order to get the right things. Because in this case, Yitzchak was wrong. Rivka was right. And the action that they did, Yaakov and Rivka, was the right thing to get the blessing. Why? Let's see. What was the blessing? Let's go on. So the Torah describes over here in chapter 27 that Yitzchak was old, he could not see, and the entire thing that I just told you. Okay, let's skip it. Now he is coming to his father, Yaakov, standing in front of his father. His father was sure that it's Esav, and he gave him the bracha. In his mind, Yitzchak, he's giving this bracha, this blessing, to Esav. But actually, he gave it to Yaakov without knowing, right? So, what was the bracha? What he told him? Vayomer. Okay. Okay. Now is the blessing. Meaning, in our words, you will have everything that you need financially. Right? Now comes the major thing, the major part of the blessing. Ya'avducha amim, nation will be your servants. V'yishtachavu lecha leumim, nations will bow down to you. Heve gvir le'achecha, v'yishtachavu lecha bnei imecha. You will lead over your brother, and the son of your mother will bow down to you. The bottom line is, Yitzchak gave the bracha to the one who got the bracha to be over his brother, to rule over his brother, right? Now, he was sure it's Esav, but actually it was Yaakov. Again, we find that in the conflict of who's leading who, Esav started when he was born as a firstborn. Then he sold out the rights. And here, Yaakov got the blessing that he will lead over him, right? Now, this is the middle. Let's see what happened. As soon as Yitzchak finished to bless him, he went out, and Esav came from the other door, ready with the food. So he came to his father and say, okay, the food is ready. So Yitzchak says, what? I just finished eating. Who are you? And then he realized, Yitzchak, that he gave the bracha, the blessing, to the wrong son. When Yitzchak realized this, he could easily say, you know what, it was wrong, it was a mistake, they tricked me, I'm taking it back. But because Yitzchak knew that it could not just happen by chance, he said, I didn't mean to give it to him, but if he got it, he should get it. Esav tried to change it. Yitzchak told him, sorry, it's irreversible. Esav cried out, but I want also a blessing. Yitzchak told him, sorry, I could not change what I gave him. And I gave him the fact that he will rule over you. So you want a blessing, I'll give you a blessing, but it will not change your status that you is under him. So Esav was so desperate to get a bracha, he got a bracha. Let's see what bracha Yitzchak gave him without changing his status as under his brother. Okay? This is the bracha that he gave him. Vayan Yitzchak aviv vayomer elav. In chapter 27, verse 39. Vayan Yitzchak aviv vayomer elav. הנה משמני הארץ יהיה מושבך ומיטה לשמיים מעל. Again, you'll do good financially, right? Now comes the second part of the bracha. Ve'al charbech tichye. You will live on your sword. He was a hunter, right? So he told them, in your field you'll do good. But if you hear the words, Ve'al charbech tichye, this is the most paradoxic way. Tichye is live. You will live by killing. Al charbecha, on your sword you will live. Okay? But, ve'et achicha ta'avod. You still be under your brother. You'll serve your brother. Meaning you could not take this sword and use it against your brother. But, he said, ve'aya kasher tarid uparakta ulo ma'al tzavarecha. This is a big thing by itself. I have no time to go to it now. But let's see what was the bottom line. He gave him a bracha, but he didn't change the fact that he is under his brother. Esav didn't like it, of course. But he not just didn't like it, he made a decision, a strategic decision. Look how it's written in the Torah. ויסתום עשיו את יעקב על הברכה אשר ברכו אביו. He hated, Esav hated Yaakov because of the bracha, the blessing that his father gave him. And Esav decided, ויאמר עשיו בליבו, Esav said in his heart, יקרבו ימי אבל אבי ואהרגה את יעקב אחי. I will not do it when my father's still alive, but I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. And this is a serious decision. It is a strategic decision. So much until Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, one of the famous scholars of the Jewish people. Everybody heard about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He lived at the time of the Romans, after the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash, which was done by the Romans, which called by Chazal, by our sages, Malchut Edom, or Galut Edom, because they are related to Esau. They destroyed the second Beis HaMikdash. They killed the teacher, the famous teacher of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Akiva, and another 9 scholars, Asar Harugei Malchut, and they looked for Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. They want to kill him also. He ran away from them to the cave, and then he became what he was, right? He learned the secrets of the Torah, okay? So says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that here in this pasuk, ויסתום עשיו את יעקב, and when he say, יקרבו ימי אבל אבי והרגה את יעקב אחי, says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, הלכה היא בידוע שעשיו שונא ליעקב. Halakha is something clear, clear cut in a way that you could not argue with this. Esav hates Yaakov. Meaning, we spoke in the beginning about anti-Semitism. If you look during the history, you could find that the extreme anti-Semites, I mean the crazy extremers, always come from the seed of Esau. I could go through the history and show it, but I want to jump because we have to cover the story of World War II. So I'll do only two major steps on the way, in the history. In brief, I will mention the other in brief. Esau decided to kill Yaakov. But he said, I'm not going to do it when my father is alive, because he was honoring his father. He knew that if he'll kill Yaakov, Yitzchak will suffer. He didn't want to do it. If you remember, right after the story, Rivka and Yitzchak sent Yaakov to get married, to run away from Esau until he would come down. He went to Haran. He married the daughters of Lavan, right? When he came back after 20 years that he was away, he's sending messengers to check up what's the temperature of the angry, if Esau's still mad on him. They came back and told him, yes, he's coming toward you with 400 soldiers. Yaakov was really terrified. So the Torah described that he davened to Hashem and he sent them presents. The end of it was that they met, but nothing happened. They kissed each other and they separated. There are many details on this. Again, we do not have time now to cover this. Now, Esau, the Torah described the descendants of Esau. He has many children. His oldest kid of Esau, his name was Eliphaz. Eliphaz has many children. One of his children, the illegal one, was Amalek. Amalek was the grandson of Esau. Let's go in the history. Yaakov went back, come back to Eretz Canaan. The Shvatim has the argument, the jealousy with Yosef. They sold him to Egypt. From this comes that Yaakov with everybody went to Egypt. We stayed there for the time that we were slaves over there. Then Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, right? Out of Egypt. After the split of the sea, Kriyas Yamsuf, Esau, meaning his grandson, Amalek, came and initiated the first war against the Jewish nation. Hashem swore at the time that he is going to wipe the memory of Amalek from under the sky. But Esau, we find him again coming. Amalek wants to just fulfill the will of his grandfather to kill Yaakov. He didn't succeed at the time, but we got a mitzvah to kill Amalek, because if you will not do that, they will kill you. 400 years after, the first king, Shaul, was the first king. After he became a king, Shmuel Hanavi told him, listen, Hashem told me to tell you that you have to close the open account that we have with Amalek. Go, make a war against them, kill them all. Don't leave even one. He did it. But he left the king. Now, do you know? I captured the king. What was the name of the king of Amalek at the time? Agag. The Torah mentioned that his name is Agag. Aleph Gimel Gimel. That was the name. Agag. He was the king of Amalek. Because Shaul didn't kill him, Shaul lost his position as a king. And the kingdom was given to David. 600 years after the story of Shaul, something terrible happened. From the fact that Shaul didn't kill Agag. Now we're going to Purim. In Megillas Esther, we find that we were in exile under the Persians. The king was Achashverosh. But in chapter 3 in Megillas Esther, it mentioned that King Achashverosh took one of his ministers and put him the prime minister. Let's look at it. We're going to read all of this in Purim very soon, 3 weeks from now, right? Let me skip to there. Chapter 3, Megillas Esther. אחר הדברים האלה, גידל המלך אחשוורוש את המן בן המדתה Ha'agagi. We have to remember again. We are under the rule, the kingdom of the Persians. But the Persians, the king of the Persians, Hashverosh, took a person that was not Persian, Haman. Who he was? His father the name of his father was Hamedata. But he was the son of the son of the son of the son of the Agag, that was the king of Amalek that Shaul didn't kill. Right? So from him came this Haman, the son of Agag. Okay? Now, because the king, Ahasuerus, wants everybody to realize that he give him a strong position in the government. He is Rosh Hasarim, Me'al Kol Hasarim. He is the head of the ministers, right? So he gave an order that everybody should bow down to him. Usually, everybody bow down only to the king. But here the king says, because I want everybody to realize that I really appreciate this guy, everybody should bow down to him. Okay, everybody bow down to him. But one person. Were near the palace, and Haman was going in and out. Everybody was bowing down. Mordechai standing still up, no moving when he was. And it was provocative. But you know why Mordechai did this? You remember the bracha that Yaakov got from Yitzchak? Heve gvir le'achecha, ve'ishtachavu lecha bnei imecha. So who is to bow down to who? Esav to Yaakov. Many, many years after that, in the history, it happened that everybody should bow down to Haman, which is a descendant of Esav. So everybody did, but Mordechai could not do it. He is a descendant of Yaakov, so he's telling him, you should bow down to me. Don't expect me to bow down to you. Of course, that drives him crazy and makes him very mad. And then he makes a decision. What was the decision? Because he was so mad on Mordechai, and he understood that it's not a Mordechai as a personal, it's the nation. Therefore, he didn't just want to kill Mordechai. Look what happened. וירא המן, כי אין מרדכי קורא ומשתחווה לו, וימלא המן חימה. He was very mad. ויבז בעיניו לשלוח יד במרדכי לבדו. He said, no, it will not solve the problem of killing him himself. Because he has a principal idea that the entire nation holding, that they are over us, over me, said Haman, right? So, what he wanted to do, ויבקש המן להשמיד את כל היהודים, אשר בכל מלכות אחשוורוש על מרדכי. He wanted to kill all the Jews. If you could hear it, you could see that actually, to destroy the Jewish nation, it's not a new idea. It's not the idea of Hitler. It's not even the idea of Haman. The original idea was Esav. He was the first one to say, I want to kill Yaakov. At the time, Yaakov was the entire nation. But we find out that his descendants, it starts from Amalek, through Haman, they want to do the same thing. That will be no Jew around the world. So it's not just anti-Semitism. It's the extreme one. Okay? So he wanted to do this. He is the prime minister. It's a very senior position, but he has a boss. Right? The king he has to ask permission from the king. So the Megillah described the story. He went to the king. He made the lottery about the day, and then he went to the king and he told them, listen, this nation, ישנו עם אחד מפוזר ומפורד בין העמים. They're not doing, you know what? I want to buy them from you. We got used to the story, but if you think about it, it's insane. A minister in a government come to the president, ask him, listen, I want to buy part of your citizens. One nation. You have 127 countries, one nation. And this nation is not in a certain location, it's spread all over. I want to buy them. Buy them for what? To kill them. Buy them to kill them. And I'm going to pay you money. And he offered him 10,000 כיכר כסף. The idea is crazy. But the response of the king was even more crazy. What Achashverosh told him? Go ahead, do it, and you know what? I do not need your money. הכסף נתון לך והעם לעשות לו בו כתום ועיניך. Meaning, if you think the bad guy in the Megillah was Haman, Achashverosh was not less than him. He initiated, but he said, you know what, do it. Go ahead. And I don't need your money. Meaning, you do me a favor. Okay? Fine. So here comes the decree to kill all the Jews in the world. It's not, if anybody thought that the final solution is a new idea of the Nazis, they just do not understand what's going on, what we just learned now. It's not the Nazis' idea, it's the Haman, it's the Amalek, and it's Esav originally. Okay, so Baruch Hashem, in Purim, it ended up with the great miracle of Purim, and everybody knows the story, and whatever he wants to do to the Jews, it happened to him and his children and all the Amalekim at the time. We have to know, Haman was hanged, his 10 sons were hanged, and 75,000 Nazis, it's mentioned in the Megillah, was killed by the Jews in the same day that they want to kill the Jews. This is the story of Purim. The story of Purim is in the Tanakh, right? In the Ksuvim, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. Megillah Esther is in the Ksuvim. The story of Purim happened approximately 500 years ago. The Tanakh described until then. Right after that was the rebuild of Beis HaMikdash, and it described in Sefer Ezra, Nehemiah, that they came back to Eretz Yisrael and they built Beis HaMikdash. Then the Tanakh stopped. No more Nevuah, but the history continued. And the Jews still there, and the descendants of Esav still there. And during the history we find in few places also anti-Semites who wants to kill the Jews. Inquisition, all, the Tzlav, all the Crusades. But I want to jump on all of this and go to World War II. In World War II, everybody knows about the final solution, the plans of the Nazis to kill the Jews. I want to show you something, a document, that if you never saw it before, you're going to be in shock. Even if you saw it before, you're going to be in shock. Because I'm going to explain it in a way that you'll be in shock. Okay? It's mentioned and actually based on one verse in the Tanakh, not in the Torah, not in the Nevi'im, but in the Ksuvim, in Psalms, in Tehillim. There is a verse over there, a pasuk, that somebody davened, somebody prayed to God, and he seems in very bad shape. And he davened to God from all his heart, and he says the following. Let me show you the verse. Tehillim, Perek Kuf Mem, Psalms 140, verse 9. The person who said the praying said the following. Al titen Hashem ma'avaye rasha, zmamo al tafek yarumu sela. He prayed to God and said to God, please God, save me. There is a wicked. It's anonymous. We do not know. It's not clearly mentioned who is this wicked. But this wicked guy has a wicked desires. So please God, don't let him to actualize his desire. This is the meaning of Al titen Hashem ma'avaye rasha. Don't let the desire of the wicked one to fulfill, to actualize. Then it says, Zmamo al tafek yarumu sela. I don't like the translation over here. Let me tell you what the translation is. Zmamo al tafik. In Hebrew, the word zmam, has two meanings, apparently two different meanings. There is something in the Torah called ed zomem. If somebody wants to come to court and blame somebody in things that he never did, it's called that he has a wicked idea and he wants to put it on this guy. That's called mezima. Mezima is a bad idea that somebody wants to fulfill. This is mezima. But in Hebrew, the word zomem refers to something else. An animal that they black the mouth of the animal in order for the animal not to eat grass that not belong to it. It's mentioned in the Mishnah and there are many places. Samim zmam. They put something. How do you say it in English? Mazel. Mazel tov?
No.
Mazel ra. That's mazel ra. Okay. You put a mazel on the mouth in order to prevent the animal to eat something that they should not do. Okay? So here's the meaning is the following. The person who pray to God, listen, there is a wicked one that I'm really scared of him. He has a wicked idea, a wicked desire. Please, God, don't let him fulfill it or actualize it. Zmamo al tafek. His wicked idea, don't let it become true. And more, he has something right now that blocking him from doing it. Please don't let this blockage go out. This is the meaning of this verse. What's missing over here? Who is praying? Who is the wicked? What is the bad idea that he really scared of? In the pasuk, it could relate to many things. To many, apparently King David said this. King David has many enemies. It could relate to many of them, right? But it's written without details. And here comes the information that we have in the oral Torah. And let me just in brief mention what oral Torah is. Oral Torah is the only right explanation of the meaning of the psukim in the Tanakh. When the Navi wrote down this psukim in Nevuah and prophecy, he wrote it in a way that it could bear many explanations. When he taught it to his students, he told them what is the meaning. He wrote it, and the explanation was given orally to the students. And it passed from generation to generation to generation. At the time of, after the destruction of the second temple, the oral Torah was written. The major principle of the oral Torah was written in the Mishnah. 250 years after the Mishnah was written, the Gemara was written. And the Gemara is the information in details of the thing that we got in tradition and passed from generation to generation. I want to quote you a few sentences from the Gemara. We have to know in advance in order to understand how powerful it is that the Gemara was written 1,500 years ago. Meaning the words that I'm going to show you is there 1,500 years ago. When I say it's written 1,500 years ago, we have to understand again. The information was given much earlier, but it was orally. It passed orally from generation to generation until it was documented in the Gemara in order that it will not be forgotten. Right? So, for sure it was written 1,500 years ago. But the origin of the information is much, much earlier. So, the Gemara in Maseches Megillah, whereas in the entire Talmud, there is a Maseches, but in the Mishnah there is a Masechta called Maseches Megillah. It speaks about Purim, it speaks about Megillah Esther, it speaks about the Dinim, the Kriyas Megillah, how to read it, a lot of other details. Among the other things, the Gemara bring a portion called Agadita, which means it deals not with the details, practical details, but with the idea. Okay? So the Gemara bring the fact that there is anti-Semitism, and Esav hates Yaakov. Among the discussion, one of the Amoraim bring this pasuk in Tehillim, in the Masechet Megillah, he brings this pasuk in Tehillim, And he said, let me tell you what I learned from my teachers, that learned from their teachers, that learned from their teacher until the students of the Navi who wrote this. What is the meaning of the things? Who is the wicked? Who is saying the praying? What is the idea? Everything, okay? And it's written in the Gemara. Be aware that we are now after World War II. We heard about Hitler. We heard about the final solution. We know it. But people learned this Gemara 100 years ago, before the Nazis came to power in Germany. It was known. Nobody connected it to the events. Now we have the privilege to know the Gemara after we know the event. And if you read it, I'm telling you, it should put you in real shock. Look at this. Here's the Gemara. Masechet Megillah, Davav Amud Aleph. Ve'amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak is one of the scholars, the Amoraim in the Talmud. He brings this pasuk, Mai dichtiv Tehillim, Al titen Hashem ha'avayeh rasha zmamo al tafek yerum usel. What is the meaning of this? And he says the following. This praying was praying that Yaakov Avinu says. David HaMelech in Tehillim quoting Yaakov. Yaakov is the one that is scared and diving to Hashem and pray to God. Amar Yaakov לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא, ריבונו של עולם, the master of the universe, אל תיתן לעשיו הרשע תאוות ליבו. The wicked that mentioned over here, Rasha, the Rasha is Esau. And I'm really scared from him. From what? If you remember the verse that I quoted before from the Torah, what happened when Esau heard? What happened? He hated Yaakov. How it's written exactly in the Torah. ויסתום עשיו את יעקב על הברכה אשר ברכו אביו. Be aware of the following. ויאמר עשיו בליבו יקרבו ימי אבל אביו והרגה את יעקב אחי. He said it in his heart, meaning it's a real decision. And here the pasuk relate to the heart. אמר יעקב לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא ריבונו של עולם אל תיתן לעשיו הרשע תאוות ליבו. He referring to the decision of Esau to kill Yaakov. Okay? Now, he explained the continuation of the pasuk. What is the meaning of Zmamo al Tafek? Says the Gemara, and again, it was written 1500 years ago. Zmamo al Tafek, zo Germania shel Edom. she'ilma lehem yotzim, macharivim kol ha'olam kulo. Let me first read it the way it is, then explain it. He said, Zmamo al Tafek, don't take the blackage out of his mouth and let him do it. What I mean by this, there is a nation, says the Gemara, 1500 years ago. The name of the nation is Germany. Germany, double mem. Even though we know Germany. I'll relate to this later. But the Gemara says there is a nation called Germania. Shel Edom. And it's come from Edom. Meaning from Esau, from Amalek. It's the same chain. And I'm really scared from them. Why? Look what the Gemara says. I'm scared that they will do what? If they will come out from their place, אם הם יוצאים, come out from their place, מחריבים כל העולם כולו. They will be involved in a world war. And they're going to destroy. Destroy who? The Jews. Because who's davening? Who's praying? Yaakov. And he's scared from the decision of Esau to kill him. And he said it's going to apply to one point in the history when a nation called Germany that comes from Esau, from Edom, that want to do it. And if Hashem will, if you let them to go out of the place, they will cover the world in order to look for Yaakov's descendants to kill them. It's written over here. It's amazing. The only thing is, it was bingo if it was Germania and not Germania, right? But it's written in the Gemara with double mem, Germania. In Hebrew, it should be Germania, nun here, right? So, but it's pretty good anyways. I want to show you something. It's much more than you think. Everybody heard about the Vilna Gaon. Do you know approximately when Vilna Gaon lived? How long ago? approximately 210 years ago, he passed away. And he was old when he passed away. Okay? Just remember the numbers. Okay? The Vilna Gaon passed away 210 years ago, approximately. Now, everybody heard about Germany. There is anybody here who knows how long Germany as a country, as a state, as a place? Today, if you open the map, you will find in the center of Europe a place called Germany. How long Germany, under this name, is there on the map on Europe, on the map of Europe? How long? How long ago? It established, become a nation named Germany. What? No.
Bismarck time.
At the time of Bismarck, I don't know, we didn't say or ask you to prepare homework for this lecture in history, but you know, if you heard about Bismarck at 1871 established a nation called Germany. German tribes was known long time ago, but it was tribes all over Europe. Bismarck put them together, or majority of them together, and established Germany. 1871. How long ago?
40 years.
No, 1871.
140 years ago.
140 something, 144 years ago, okay? Now, Vilna Gaon lived 70 years at least before Bismarck. At this time, no state in Europe called Germany. And yet, when the Vilna Gaon learned the Talmud, aside from learning it, he did side works. And he compared versions of the Talmud. The popular version said this, Zo Germania with double mem, two mems. But the Vilna Gaon, in his writings, and we have the original writings, right, says the following. The Vilna Gaon, Germania, tzarich lomar Germania. The proper is Germany. He said it's a mistake in the words. It's not, in the letters, it's not nun, it's not mem, it should be nun. And he fixed it much before Germany was established. Right? Aside from this, 100 years before the Vilna Gaon, in the center of Europe, in a place that later on we'll call Germany, was a famous Rav. You probably heard about him. His name is Rabbi Yaakov Emdin. Rabbi Yaakov Emdin lived 50 years before the Vilna Gaon, and it's not in the same location. If you know, Vilna is in East Europe, and Rabbi Yaakov Emdin was a Rav in Germany, but at the time, the name of Germany was not Germany, right? So he said, without knowing about the work that the Vilna Gaon will do 100 years after him, he said the same thing. He said, Germania, נכתב בצידו כמדומה רצונו לומר גרמניה. He fixed the same thing. He Ashkenaz שלנו. And he added here a very important thing. Because at the time, let's say 300 years ago, when Rabbi Yaakov Emdin was the Rav over there, was no place in the world called Germany. So he said the following. Listen, in this Gemara, it's a mistake. It should be Germany. And if you want to know what Germany is, this is Ashkenaz, our Ashkenaz. And another thing that you should know, today, all the Jews that came from Europe, it doesn't matter from Central Europe, West Europe, East Europe, called Ashkenazim. But Ashkenaz in the original is Deutschland only. It's Deutschland. So he said, you want to know? Germany is Ashkenaz. Because at the time, people said, what's the difference? We never heard not about Germany and not about Germany. So he said, no, listen, it's a mistake. It should be known. And it's Germany, and you want to know what Germany is? It's our nation. It's our country. So two scholars before Hitler, before Bismarck, of course before Hitler, fixed the Gemara. Now let's learn the Gemara the way it's written, in the correct way, right? So what the Gemara says, that Yaakov, in the beginning of the history, after Esau decided to kill him, He prayed to God, and he said, don't let him. He has a wicked idea. He wants to kill me. And I know that during the history will be a nation out of him called Germany. And they will be involved in a world war. מחריבים כל העולם כולו. And they will look for me. And he prayed for this. This is amazing. But it's not ending over here. The Gemara continue. No, he prayed that it will not happen. And you know what? Because of his prayer, Hitler didn't succeed the way he wants to. Baruch Hashem. I mean, it's not saying that will be or not casualties by the Jews. It says that please Hashem, don't do it. So you could ask, Hashem will answer the way you want to answer, the way it's proper to answer. But what I want to show over here that he knew about it, and he relate to this. But the Gemara continues. It's not finishing over here. The Gemara says that after Rabbi Yitzchak says this thing in the Beis Medrash, one of his friends, a fellow scholar, come and says, you know what? If you're speaking already about Germany and what they're going to do, let me add a few more details that I heard from my rabbis. And he added the following. Look. ואמר רבי חמא בר חנינא, תלת מהכתיר הייתה גאיקה בגרמניה של אדום. This Germany that we're talking about will be divided to 300 crown holders. Meaning it will be divided to 300 colonies. Okay? And he continue. ותלת 165 מרזבני will be 365 dukes. Ika, there is Beromi. And here adding another very interesting piece of information. He mentioned Italy, Rome. And he said in Rome will be 365 dukes. And he added the following information. Uvechol yoma, naf kehane le'apehane, will be a conflict, a war, attempts between Germany and Rome. And in this tense, one of them will kill the leader of the other. And because there will be a conflict between them, they will prevent it from, they will be prevented from appointing one leader that will unify them. This written in the Gemara. Now look at the history, if you know the history. During the 1,000 years, I'm sorry, the time is always my enemy. I could not cover okay, but with the major points we delivered. If you know the history, you know that Nazi Germany called the Third Reich, right? Why the third? Who was the second? So they tried to call the Germany from Bismarck on until 1933, when the Nazis came to power. They called this section of the history the Second Reich. So they become the third one. Where's the first one? The first one was called, I don't know how to say it in English, Imperia Haromit Akdosha, the Holy Roman Empire. Thank you. The Holy Roman Empire existed for 1,000 years. And when Hitler came to power, he said, I'm going to build the Third Reich that will exist at least 1,000 years. Baruch Hashem, it was only 12. But that's what he wants to do. The history of the First Reich was full of tension between the Vatican and the Caesars that usually were Germans. And it was a constant conflict between who is the leader? The spiritual leaders, quote, quote, of the Vatican, or the fighters or the army leaders, which is Germany. And the Gemara described this here clearly. And it says that they will be in constant tense. And because this conflict, they will not be able to unify beyond one leader. The only time that it happened was in World War II. If you know the history, The only ally of Nazi Germany, of Hitler, in Europe, was Italy. And they unified behind one leader, and they operated what they wanted to do, to kill the Jews. So the Gemara gives us an amazing map with details. It's unbelievable. After the thing happened, you see this, and wow, we have such an information in the Torah. You know what that shows? This information could not, no way, that somebody could think about it and, bingo, by chance it happened. It's detailed, and it's constant, and we now understand where it's coming from. There is much more, but I'm sorry, I have to conclude it over here because in about 3 minutes we have another lecture in Hebrew. But the major points I think I covered. There is more very interesting things, but for another time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much.